All right, so we're here today to talk about when vapes ignite, right? And again, you know, Hans has actually done a lot of the EPR studies. If you guys know me or don't know me, I've been literally talking about the harmful effects of the lithium-ion battery fires and other traditional hazards. So I like to be real clear that, you know, we're not only dealing with like lithium-ion battery fires, but we're also dealing with traditional hazards in all of our waste and recycling streams. And if you guys have heard of Fire Rover, you know, we started in 2015. I really started telling the world. I used to have a slide that was it was a wave, and I'm like, the lithium-ion battery wave is coming. And you know, we started seeing symptoms of it, you know, in 2015 and 16. I'll get into more of the story and how it happened, but you know, the reality was, you know, ideally we were going to create this awesome solution, Fire Rover. We were going to protect all the MRFs and transfer stations, and we were going to stop all the fires from happening. And actually, the opposite has happened. So, you know, it's been pretty interesting. I write an annual report. I've been doing this, and you guys all have copies. And if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, I would love to. If you ever have questions, you ever need anything, I help a lot of EPR as it's been evolving over the last 10 years. My biggest thing is that the waste and recycling operators are the victims. And again, when I say that we are at war, I mean, like, we're at war, right? We are literally having batteries dropped on our doorsteps every single day. We have been embraced by the waste and recycling industry. We are in 10 of the top 10 waste and recycling companies. We've literally had one catastrophic loss overpower our system in 10 years. So insurance companies are coming back, right? All the things that I'm talking about and these consequences, we are trying to change. So I'm not saying these things to scare anybody, but the reality is that, you know, we really got to get on the same page that waste and recycling operators are the victims. And again, I don't mean that from a negative effect. I mean that from, you know, a less than a punitive effect of where we need help. But the reality is that from an economic perspective, you know, you really do have to get a lot of the producers to fund a lot of these different programs, right? And it's not just education, because as we're going to see, education is actually working. The problem is we need more convenient drop-off locations. So the one thing, I do the annual report. It's there if you want to take a look at it. But this is what I've been looking at for the past 10 years. I look at every single month, and I'm only looking at the reported fires in the media. And you know, this is usually 2-alarm, 3-alarm, 4-alarm fires. And what's really happened, and again, this is probably not the best slide to see it, but you know, we used to see 260 fires like literally every single year. Now we're seeing, you know, a lot more than that. And again, when I get into what's causing the fires, this is what the report's for. We can get into it, but we all know it's hot and dry environments, right? It's lack of staffing. So, you know, you're seeing less and less staffing in a lot of these locations. Traditional fire hazards. I mean, for every lithium-ion battery fire that you see, there's one that has nothing to do with a lithium-ion battery fire. Now put them all together, and now you have an accelerant and a lithium-ion battery that triggers it. I mean, it's literally, we're creating bombs in our trash, and that's where you're seeing trucks and landfills and all these other things happening. There's an inherent risk, and one of the things early on was trying to explain that good operators have less fires, but you know, bad operators might have more fires, but good operators have fires. It's an inherent risk in our business, and there is a lot of industries that have an inherent risk of fire, right? You just have to manage to it, and you got to create solutions. Arson is actually, believe it or not, it happens a lot more in Europe, but there's a lot of times when these fires are started, not necessarily by a competitor, but also by someone who's really angry at the company for some reason, or homeless, not doing it on purpose because they're looking for some sort of warmth. And you know, like, we do see all these fires and staffing. So really what I was talking about before is that this was when we saw the battery wave hit. And this hit in Japan. Japan had the Japanese Container Packaging Association in 2018. They had 6 times the amount of fires they'd had the year before. I actually have claims data from all the insurers that were leaving, and the number of claims from lithium-ion batteries, shredder fires, and all those different pieces. And again, this is all in the report. But what happened, things started getting better, and we started protecting some of the industry here. Now we have 850 facilities that we cover across 3 continents. And the issue is that I thought these numbers were going to go down. The idea was we would see more known fires because you'd have our fires that we know and that we put out. This year we're going to put out 500 fires alone in that suppression. We've caught over 3,500. But we started seeing these numbers go up, and every single day of my life, I'm thinking, why are these numbers going up? What's going on? What are we doing incorrectly? And here's the issue: is that we're covering 7 to 10%, like depending on how many scrap metal facilities, depending on how many MRFs, transfer stations. EREF has basically estimated about 10,000. If we're covering 850, I'm covering basically 8% of the market. And my guys aren't having those fires. So these numbers are typically happening to the smaller operators and the municipalities. So, and that's a major and catastrophic loss, probably like 30% of these. And NWRA did a study last year, 2 years ago, on single stream MRFs. The number of, the cost to us and the insurers is $1.2 billion a year in the United States alone. That's just battery fires. So if you double that, it's literally $2.5 billion, traditional hazards again, and lithium-ion batteries. So what's actually causing this fire? And that 438 is an estimated number. It could be higher, right? That's just based on using the average of the last 8 years, which, again, I think it's uberly conservative, right? The goal is always, I'm always going to be uberly conservative. The number is about 6 times that number from a fire perspective. This year, we're seeing some crazy numbers, and I'm going to try to play this. Can you guys hear?
The waste and recycling industry is facing a hidden threat: lithium-ion batteries, particularly from disposable vapes. Fires caused by improper disposal of these devices have surged dramatically, threatening facilities, employees, and communities. Monthly vape users have grown by nearly 6 million in the past 2 years. With 18 million monthly vape users who consume an average of 66 vapes annually, contributing to over 48 million improperly disposed of vapes every week in the US and Canada, the impact is staggering. These small devices are causing catastrophic fires despite industry efforts to improve safety. The problem? Limited education and lack of accessible drop-off points for safe disposal. We feel most of these users would dispose of these vapes in a safe way if one was provided. It's on us, the industry, to build solutions that give these users an easy and integrated way to properly dispose of their vapes.
So, the reality is that I put that out last year, and I created something, or I coined a term called the vape effect. And let's walk into what that is, right? So the vape effect is literally this number. So for the first 6 years, I thought we had a problem, right? The last 2, we're up 20% for fires. And again, we're covering 7 to 8% of this market if you're assuming that 10,000 is a number. So why is that happening? I started looking into the K1s of Altria. There were 18 million American smokers 21 or plus, 21 or over. By 2022, or by 2024, 6 million of them had moved from traditional cigarettes to disposable vapes. So that's 6 million more people who are using on average 65 vapes a year. They're selling daily disposables. And the vape effect isn't the problem. It's not just vapes, right? But it's also that there's nowhere to drop these off. So they're considered a biohazard, and they're considered a hazard material. So the reality is that even a call to recycle who wants to pick them up can't, right? Because they have to figure out a way. So this is where we need all of us to really understand it's not a battery problem, it's a tobacco problem, right? And this is where I can't wait for Hans to get into this, because I think that's really her big message. And again, it's only getting worse because you're only having more folks move from traditional cigarettes to vapes. So if you look just this year, and again, I just put this out on Waste 360, there's an article that kind of goes into all the details, so I really don't, but I break out waste paper and plastic. That's a curbside problem. That is an education of a consumer and a curbside. When you're dealing with C&D and you're dealing with scrap and you're dealing with some of the waste paper and plastic, it's a business problem. It's a contamination problem. And we really need it. Education's the answer, but it's also the answer not just for a consumer, it's for businesses to understand that, hey, when you're coming in and you're hiding something because you don't want to pay to have all these vapes taken care of, and all of a sudden my C&D operator who had no idea they were coming adds that to some sort of an accelerant and it causes a major fire that we have to deal with on the front lines, it's a problem. And it's something that we need to be able to fix it. So this is, where The idea was we'd have more known fires and less actual fire events. But the reality is that we're seeing more fires and more known events, which, again, I thought my job would have been done 3 years ago, right? Honestly, like you can ask Heidi, we've been working on this a long time, and I can tell you, I was very hopeful that we get there, and I'm still hopeful, but at the same time, who pays for this besides you guys, the insurance companies? We need to make sure that the right people are being held responsible for it. I go by metals, and I show these quickly because I don't want to spend all this time getting into data, but you do have the report, so feel free to go through it. If you ever have questions, please text me, link in with me. I mean, I'm happy to DM and do all those different pieces. But the reality is, like, and a lot of people want to see this, is like, how does the Fire Rover system work? We're the first and only smart monitor, so you got to be very careful. And again, I don't say this from a sales perspective. And again, if you think that it's okay, I totally understand. I probably think the same thing too. But the reality is that we're the first and only FM certified solution. We certified under 6 different standards. We were able to prove that our system worked in the scrap metal facilities, in waste and recycling, and then we took our product to the lab. Normally when you have a fire product, and I always tell people, I'm in the fire protection industry, I'm not in the waste and recycling industry. We're here to protect waste and recycling industry. But when we're fighting a fire, an industrial fire, firefighters don't want to fight these fires. They want nothing to do with these fires. They don't want to come in, and that's why you see major and catastrophic losses, and you see more of them in the UK because they take a less aggressive approach to firefighting. They're really coming in to contain. So you are either putting it out yourself, which means your employees are on the front lines putting these out themselves, which they've been doing for years, but keep in mind, these fires are getting more dangerous. The toxic fumes that are coming off, one vape, it's according to Eric Frederickson from Call to Recycle, that it's 2 gallons of toxic fumes. So we're in the process of writing a children's book that is going to be SWANA, NWRA, Call to Recycle, and a couple other folks that we're putting together. And our goal is to really educate children and parents in classrooms. But you know, the reality is that you do not want to take a fire extinguisher and run over to a battery fire. If you don't hear a pop, you need to get out of the way because that's shrapnel and that's other things that are hitting. So when we're fighting a fire, what happens is that I have a continuous flow of water. The fire department is only coming in and copying us if we tell them it's okay. They're only coming into our battery recyclers if we tell them it's okay. So the reality, when you start to look through these, they don't want to fight your fire, so you need to have something in place that allows your employees not to be the front lines, because the last thing we want is the employees. And this is where we get into, you know, this is how our system performs. Again, this has been through September of this year. We have 3,014 fires. Other people will sell an early detection solution, and early detection is the easy part, right? We have thermal cameras, we have optical flame detection, we have smoke versus steam analytics. The difference between us and other systems is that I have a human operator who looks at, verifies, and we can look at fires, every piece of hay in a haystack to find the needle, but we're also managing those 6 minutes from when there's a fire event to when the fire department comes on scene. If we're dealing with 2 different nozzles, we have 2 different sets of teams fighting those from 2 different vantage points. And then again, we're always going to bring in the fire professionals, but only if they're comfortable coming in, because a lot of times they're not, especially in a lot of our high hazard businesses. Of these, we pressurized our system about 30% of the time, 383 times, so we're on pace for about 500 this year of fires that we're putting out on our customers' front lines. And then the fire department dispatches, we have thermal onlys, we have other types, so it's not a one-to-one scenario, but it really is something that is important. But we've only had 2 catastrophic losses, and that 2 times our system's been overpowered in an area that we have protection in over 10 years. One was a battery recycler, the other was a tip floor that had a truckload of hand sanitizer dumped on it. So, I mean, it was a vapor fire, and the structure of the building, we believe, is okay. You know, and again, this is like where you can sell one piece of it, but what we do is that full maintenance, monitoring, bumper-to-bumper warranty for the life of the contract. And if you think your normal sprinkler system, it's integration. That's where it breaks, right? We have one partner, us. We integrate all the best pieces and parts in it, and we manage it all the way from beginning to end, you know, for the full life of the contract. and all of those pieces and parts have been tested under a standard of FM, and then we are doing the same thing with all our others. So, again, I like to show this one. I mean, this is not a battery, right? This is the other types of hazards, right? This was actually a kid who was hiding his entire fireworks. His mom got angry. She found them. She tossed them in the trash. You guys can find out where these are, and you can educate. I mean, it's true. You can go educate, from a house-by-house basis. So we really do have to get better at that. But again, we can't really slow down our processing if we don't expect our costs to go up significantly. So again, we never have had a false we've never had a false activation. We have an appropriate response to a hazard. We're ideally suited for large spaces and outdoor, and we keep the fire professionals safe. But most important, and honestly, this is one of the things that everybody is surprised when we hear it, we use less than 500 gallons of water and environmentally friendly wetting agents on our fires. So we are using so much less. You're getting back to work quicker, and the insurance companies will give you benefits for everything we do. They're probably not doing it for any of the other pieces and parts that are put together. I have state data, site generated, so if you guys want to jump into these, it's really a big piece. Again, I think it has all the numbers. I've kind of covered all these. This is really an important piece here. This is where we get to deaths and injuries. And again, I really don't like to get into this piece, but the reality is the injuries are usually from the two of the firefighters who are fighting these fires. A lot of it's heat exhaustion. A lot of it is other things that happen to the firefighters. But this year, we've had 5 deaths, right? 5. We've never had more than 2 to 1. So these fires are getting more dangerous. And I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I am trying to get everybody to truly understand that this is a big issue. These were the numbers I was talking about all the claims data in 2018 from an insurance perspective. And again, if you guys know Sean Mendel from Waste Connections, for him to get on and actually, I think I just lost this, but I'm going to play his because
we have not had a significant loss at a location with the Fire Rover system. I'm Sean Mandel, Vice President of Safety and Risk Management with Waste Connections, huge advocate of Fire Rover. The insurance market for anyone in the industry is getting tougher and tougher. And the fact of the matter is they want to see what we're doing to mitigate the risk of property losses from fires. From the cost of insurance, there is a significant savings where we have the tools like Fire Rover deployed to mitigate the risk.
So again, the reason I show that is because you're going to get calls from people who say, oh, hey, Fire Rover's expensive. We're the most inexpensive thing that you're going to buy, and it's because you get your insurance savings, right? But again, if you call your broker and you say, hey, what are you going to, it takes convincing and arguing and understanding, and when I say arguing, it's from a very legal perspective, if that makes any sense. So I'm now going to pass it. I have a million videos, a million things you guys can see. Again, it's not about the fact that Fire Rover is a solution, right? It's the fact that we're the only ones in the world doing what we do, and we are in the fire protection industry. I protect chemicals. I protect rubber fires. I protect all these hangars. We protect all these other occupancies in the fire protection. In waste and recycling in the U.S., we are on the forefront of how we protect ourselves. And it's not just from our system. It is a solution. It is all the work you guys have done from an education, from a fire protection, fire prevention, all the great things that you guys are doing. So I know I might hopefully be someone, knock on wood, who's driving some of that change, but at the same time, we are doing this all together, and that's really the most important piece of the equation. So I look forward to handing it over, and we'll do some questions as well if you guys would like to at the end.
Thank you. So my name is Hansa Tia. I'm a senior associate at the Product Stewardship Institute. So thank you so much, Ryan. Like, awesome. I love the work that you're doing, and I'm so excited to be up here talking to you all about this. The issue of like vape waste. I've been researching this topic for several years now, and I'm excited to share some solutions with you. So first, I just want to say I'm coming from the Product Stewardship Institute. We are a nonprofit focusing on extended producer responsibility. We work on multi-stakeholder facilitation, mediation, including EPR education, so program design as well. I do a lot of work on creating pilot projects, so like vape pilots has been a huge topic that I've been recently working more and more on, as well as policy and technical research. So we're going to talk about vape waste. First, I just want to ask everyone, how many vapes and vape-related products do you see in this picture? And anyone want to take a guess?
Well, it's impossible to tell because some of the highlighters and things you can't even tell from looking at them.
Yeah. Yeah, Heidi makes a great point, which is that, it's kind of the point is that it's impossible to tell. So here is the results. So there's about 5 vapes and then 8 different pods, e-liquids, accessories, for a total of 13 different products just in this picture. And like this is an example of, stuff you might find in a kid's backpack, like going to school. And it just, want to highlight the problem of vape use with youth and how like this is like an issue that is, it's a waste issue, but it's also a public health issue. And so I just want to also moving into this, thinking about like the different stakeholders that we need to engage when we're like thinking about this problem and how to address it. So as I said, significant rise in youth vaping rates nationally and locally. This picture is just a graphic that highlights like the different main components, which is something, like I just wanted to kind of explain one of the, like these different parts, how they all fit together and why they're so hard, these devices are so hard to dispose of. And it's because like these all-in-one devices have, plastics, these pods or tanks or cartridges that have the e-liquid or nicotine components, embedded battery, and it's very difficult to take them apart. It can be dangerous. And these single-use devices in particular have really risen in popularity since the 2020 FDA flavor ban, which led to a lot of new products to create ways around that policy restriction. So I think Ryan kind of covered the issues of fires. Vapes are definitely a fire hazard. Like this picture here is a fire truck dumping its load into the street because of a fire caused by a battery. And so, yeah, when they're crushed, punctured, or compacted, often leads to these fires. In addition, we also want to think about how schools, which are seeing these, confiscating these from students, how they are managing these, and the costs for disposal that they are now having to deal with. So, yeah, I mean, just to summarize, like billions of these products are being sold every year, and there's no oversight or responsibility on this collection or management. So, just to quickly highlight school difficulties. It is because of that 2.2 pound threshold for very small quantity generators that schools need to adhere to. That is why it is like really challenging for them to dispose of them. They want to do the right thing, but there's also this like anxiety around being regulated as a large quantity generator if they're collecting too much in a month. And they're also very expensive to collect, and so expensive to dispose of because it's difficult to take apart. A lot of vendors don't want to accept them because of the different components. Yeah, just to summarize the current situation, we have high vaping rates. There's like this surplus of varied vape devices and then high management costs on schools and municipalities. So just quickly I want to go over a few different like local policy options that we've explored as part of our work looking into policy solutions. the 4 main policy options, and sorry, this is like, there's a lot of words on this, but happy to share this if anyone wants to see it as a handout. Bans, so we looked at flavor bans, product bans, and landfill bans. Why? Because it is a lot easier to pass a ban than a lot of other policies. However, it doesn't address the costs of vape waste management. So that was a big issue that came up when we were thinking about a ban on products, at least a ban on its own. So next, thinking about consumer fees and taxes. So that would add an additional fee at the point of sale. The problem is that these are typically pretty hard to pass. Retail license fees, which would require retailers to pay an annual fee. And those fees would be used to cover vape waste management costs, and it would be managed by the locality or municipality. And then finally, my favorite, extended producer responsibility, or EPR, which creates a program where the producers are responsible for creating a vape waste management program. It is overseen by the government. So, what is EPR and product stewardship? Who here knows what EPR or product stewardship is? Well, mostly EPR. Yeah, a few? Okay. Awesome. Well, I know Heidi's going to be talking about it later today, so yeah. So extended producer responsibility is a law that extends a producer's financial and managerial responsibility for its products and packaging beyond the manufacturing stage. So looking both upstream and downstream, so the product design and the post-consumer reuse, recycling, and safe disposal. Our current waste system is the single stream system where, a thing is sold. Household or business has it, and, they are ready to dispose of it. The service provider comes and takes care of that. EPR shifts this responsibility so there is more equitable access to recycling, disposal, and, just to talk a little bit more about bans. So, one of the benefits of a ban on either flavored products or single-use products, we also looked at landfill bans, which I think are great, but also on their own, they're not providing infrastructure and the ability for people to actually drop off those devices. So, bans are great because they would result hopefully in less waste generated. But those products that are being sold before the ban goes into effect are still out there, and then enforcement for these for the ban still remains on local, state and local government, and it's pretty expensive to try to enforce these things, and it's also quite easy to get around them, as I've heard kind of time and time again anecdotally from a number of different public health professionals across the country. We partnered with the Computer Recycling Center, which handles the processing and reporting of the vapes. They provide boxes to vape shops in Springfield area. And so we're accepting devices, pods, e-liquids. In addition, we're doing a survey. And this is pretty new, so we don't have a ton of data yet. We'll be happy to share at a later time once we have more. We've had one pickup so far and collected about 10 pounds, and this is a picture of those vapes collected. Additionally, we're in the process of creating a 12-month collection pilot across New York State. And then I want to kind of close with Boulder County, Colorado's vape collection program, which I'm sure a number of people have heard of. Shelley, who was here earlier and provided all of this data. So Boulder's Hazardous Materials Management Facility collects devices and e-liquids from vape shops and schools. So this is the numbers that they've received since 2023. As you can see, the number of devices has gone up tremendously, from 7,700 in 2023. Now in 2025, and these numbers are from September, it's more than doubled, and we're not even done with the year. So just to give you an idea of like, there's a lot of them out there that are not being collected. This is just what is being collected. So I have, calculated some estimates on how many units approximately, like probably max, hopefully max, would be produced in Boulder County, assuming like, based off of some CDC data. And it's like about 140,000 units per year, which is substantial, or about 11,800 per month. So the other thing I want to highlight with this data is the cost is going up, and it is going to keep going up as more devices are collected, and just the cost of everything is going up. So we shouldn't have to be paying for this waste. And sorry, I don't know what happened. Darn. Sorry, guys. Please bear with me.
I hope we have a lot of questions. Come on, everyone, get them ready. We're going to have 20 minutes for them, so.
Yeah, I'm almost done.
You're good.
Yeah, so just like kind of something I said before was thinking about the different stakeholders in your community when you're thinking about programs and policy. If you want to create a program in your community, which I hope you do, because I'm sure there are vapes that are being, I'm sure there's a lot of vape waste in your community. I don't know if maybe you've seen them like on the street. Like I've seen them when I go on walks pretty often, and I'm just like frustrated and wanting to create a solution. So yeah, reach out to the organizations around you, like schools, your local public health agency. They do not know how to deal with the waste aspects of this, and they want help. That is something I've noticed, is like, they're really good at the public health side, but they don't know what to do with like at the end of life of these products. So, yeah, and in addition, like vape shops are a kind of, like they've been a good partner for collection. And I know like they are also selling the products, but it is the most convenient place for people to drop them off. So yeah, just some key takeaways. Oh man, sorry. No, you guys have seen my notes this whole time. Nobody said anything.
No, yeah.
Okay. Oh gosh, it's so embarrassing. So yeah. Just to highlight, big point Ryan made that I agree with is like we need to take action, and the producers should be paying for this. Like it's not fair to municipalities, it's not fair to schools, it's not fair to us that we are paying for these products and like dealing with the consequences of them being mismanaged.
Yes, and by those producers, we're talking about tobacco producers, not the battery producers. But they can help.
Yeah, I mean, and there is like this growing interest from like states and communities across the country to solve this problem. I think that is all I have. So
Awesome.
we'll go into
So
Q&A.
do we want to do some questions? Awesome.
Great question.
Dwayne?
Question about the collection. When these are being collected at a school or anywhere really, and being collected en masse, where are they going from that point? And kind of a related question, if some states now are allowing collection points to call it household hazardous waste, doesn't that just kind of encourage them to send it to the local transfer station or landfill where you're going to have them all in one place, and it may end up being even more of an issue?
Yeah. So first point on what schools are doing with them currently. A lot of schools are just kind of if you go into a principal's office, they'll just be in like a filing cabinet. so they're like not really doing anything with it because they don't know what to do with it. I'm serious.
Right.
Like, if you have kids, you should, ask your principal. And the ones who are doing something, like in the case of like the Boulder County communities, they are bringing them to the household hazardous waste facility. And that HHW facility is, packaging them and sending them for destruction. I think, not every school knows what to do with them.
Well, I think
And-
healthcare is the same issue, right? I mean, you're dealing with, literally, they're throwing them in a nurse's desk, right? And just like anything else, right, we have to teach everybody that, like, when you're doing these at your home, it's the exact same thing. There's not enough education, which is why, we're writing a book for kids, and the goal is to, it's called Supercharge. It's part of like Scuba Jess, if you guys know the 1 million cans and the girl that collected 1 million cans. And we got to get educators and we got to get kids early to understand this, right? It's very much like give a hoot, don't pollute, right? Forest fires were a big issue 30 years ago, and NWRA is doing a great job with it. National Fire Protection Association uses Sparky. UL is basically saying that you have 1 minute to get away from a battery fire. So you also have fire extinguisher companies that are saying, hey, here's an extinguisher for batteries, and you think you run over to it and you're literally breathing in smoke. Who knows what those effects are? So, the reality is this is not just a waste and recycling problem. This is a public policy problem. Do you have a question? Sir.
Question again to build off the first question. As for a school, under EPA rules, liquid nicotine is an acute hazardous waste. So how are these schools now getting around the regulations? Because they would be considered now a hazardous waste generator.
Exactly.
So how do you encourage schools to collect them without having to comply with those rules? Is there some workaround?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. About how schools are handling the acute hazardous waste status of nicotine when they're collecting these confiscated devices and products. So the ones who are aware of that are complying. They have like that monthly limit. In the case of again, Boulder County, they are bringing them every month to make sure that they stay under that limit. I think not every vape that is used is going to be actually actively confiscated. I know a number of them are being flushed down the toilet in bathrooms, which is another very expensive, thousands of dollars when the toilet systems are getting clogged in bathrooms at schools.
Yeah. Just one of the things on TikTok, there was a trend. So if you think when people used to smoke cigarettes, they would basically rip up the cigarettes and you'd throw them away. The next day you'd buy a pack, you'd quit again, you'd do it. So on TikTok, there were a ton of, there's still a ton of trends where you'll take all your vapes, you'll throw them in, but they throw them into water, they put them in a bag, and they put, soap on them because they don't want to touch them again. They throw them right in their waste. So again, it's a bomb, right? You're literally taking that 100 vapes, 100 different, batteries, you're dropping that into your waste, it goes right into a truck. We have any accelerant in there, which we all know there's an accelerant in there somewhere. You literally are creating bombs. By the way, not to mention that it sits on a curbside and it's 120 degrees inside. So it's just, these are things where, that 2.2 pound minimum is ridiculous. We got to have real things that actually work and real policies that actually work. And I think that's the struggle right now.
And I think just and the 2.2 pound applies to the nicotine only, but usually a lot of the weight is in the battery, which has been another challenge to try to.
Have to comply with the labeling, the manifesting, technically.
Yeah.
There's not that I've heard any workaround on them not following the hazardous waste regulations, just like a manufacturer that has waste paint.
It's a high school or middle school even.
How do you get around that? How can we tell the schools to collect them when then they're now under these EPA rules?
Well, the schools aren't told they have to collect them, right? At the end of the day, they're taking them because, they don't have to collect us. It's like a speeding ticket, right? You don't have to give a speeding ticket if you don't want to. But at the end of the day, so now it's easier not to and allow our kids to be doing the things that, the reason you were taking away tobacco in the first place.
And some schools, they confiscate them and they do give them to the parents. So,
And then are the parents educated, so.
Well, the schools are looking to us as regional collection facilities, and we don't know what to do either. And if we are starting to take them, which we're on the verge of program, the minimum charge per shipment is $1,500, and that covers, so, and the other thing we're looking at is how do we report, to stay under that 2.2 pounds, it's 1,000 vapes a month that we can take. We're gonna, if we start a program, we're gonna be inundated.
So that's the issue right now. I mean, Lowe's is they've been a great collection center. And one of the things, it's like, when you look at cigarettes, right, like, there are millions, like when we used to smoke, the whole, I'm not saying we don't, but I mean, there were millions and millions of ashtrays out there. There were millions of places you could dispose of. And, some would get into trash, some would get onto the floor, some would get in the ocean, right? But I mean, the reality is that, you don't have convenient drop-off locations that will accept these. So we need to have millions of drop-off locations. And this is one of those things where, like, and I hear what Heidi says about the tobacco, yeah, they have a lot of money, but guess what? So does the municipal solid waste, and so do all the OEMs, and so does, there's a lot of power here too. It's a question of how do you get everybody together, get the message strong enough, and you get the lobbying behind it. And, it's going to take everybody getting together. It's going to take REMA, NWRA, SWANA, all getting together and having one plan. Not every single municipality having a different plan. Again, I know you have to do it that way, and we understand that. And ideally, like the world, we'd change a lot of things if we had all that power. But, the reality is we have power. We just have to make sure we use it. What questions we got?
Has there been any thought to having a fee at point of sale to help fund disposal and collection? Small fee, maybe 50 cents or $1.
Do you want to answer that?
Yes.
I definitely have my thoughts on deposits. So please
that is
go
definitely
first.
something we've considered and looked into. So some states, it is something that is like, it could work, but it wouldn't solve all of the problems. Like municipalities would still face the burden of enforcement, collection, disposal, and like producers would keep doing what they're currently doing.
Well, and that's where, so
Funding mechanism.
Yeah.
my feeling is this, and again, I'm always going to have something, because again, I'm not fighting the struggles the way that everybody else from a lobbying perspective, but I come from Michigan. We have a deposit bill. The reality is that the only way to stop vapes and to really stop the problem on the front lines in waste and recycling facilities is to become slower, right? So if you literally say that I'm now going to pick through every piece of trash, you can literally get every vape out of the trash. Now, again, I know that's not realistic, but if you go to Michigan, it's actually happening, right? You have homeless folks who are going in and they're actually going into garbage and they're pulling out cans, and it is a social welfare thing, right? And again, I'm not saying that it's right. I'm just saying that that's what it turns into. There is a way to try to have enough of a deposit that it incentivizes the user to go back and drop it off at a right place, and then also have it low enough where it's not $5 where people are now stealing them from everybody because it's so expensive, it just doesn't make sense, right? So, I personally believe that you need a stick, and that stick is, that you have to give some sort of a deposit and come back and be responsible for it. I know it's anti-American, right? Because again, we want freedom. But when you're dealing with a problem of this size, honestly, we got to do something drastic. If not, we're going to be dealing with these because the numbers are hockey sticking. They were hockey sticking in 15, right? They're hockey sticking. It's only getting more and more end of life. And again, this isn't just a vape problem. It's a battery problem. Lowe's is now not accepting. They have a maximum that they're going to accept. So all of us are going to do our job from an education perspective, and then we're going to hit limits. And that limit, they're coming real quick, because I can tell you, education, operational best practice, and technology is going to solve our problem, right? Education is now working 10 years later, but now we have to collect it, and then we have to solve the problem, right? And honestly, we're starting to see that Lowe's is saying, yeah, we love these, okay? And then they have a fire, and now they're saying, we have a limit. It's happening everywhere. Is there any, sorry, Brett?
Yeah, I was gonna say on the fee at the point of sale for electronics, I know the electronics law, we have that with California for just one state. No other states have been able to pass that. It's very difficult unless you have an industry PRO, which we really don't have for vapes right now, that's setting a fee and then collecting that and then using that to pay. Like we have for mattresses and paints and other things like that. But it's very difficult. But I did have a question about the pilot projects.
Yeah.
Are are you finding there are safer ways to collect these best practices in terms of how they're handled so that you minimize the risk when they're being collected?
Yeah. So one of the things as far as convenience at vape shops, very convenient because that is where people are buying them. They just can bring them to drop them off. Some are like offering discounts when you bring your vapes back. As far as like safety for packaging, I have like some photos of like how those are packaged at the HHW facility that I didn't include, or I think there was one at some point, but yeah, that's definitely another consideration. And sometimes you'll get these like the liquids themselves, and those can be leaking. So making sure things are in sealed containers or individual packaged bags. And like typically containers that are clear, so you can see if there's like anything happening is another consideration. And then finally, like one of the things we're exploring in New York is a mail-back system that I'm really excited about because it would mail the vapes to a recycler to be taken apart and each like component individually processed, which most of the ones that are currently being collected are being incinerated. So those the battery components are not being recycled. And part of that is like it's challenging, it's expensive, it's dangerous. So those are like some of the things we're exploring. We'll have more to come.
So I'll just make a comment really regarding, because we're seeing these, so Mark Stedman called Recycle. So over the last, I would say probably 3.5, 4 years in our collections, because we manage, the North America, both US and Canada, we are seeing a heavy influx of vapes show up in our program. Box program, right? We're seeing them at the drop-offs at Lowe's, Home Depot, Best Buy, etc. And they, as has been mentioned, they are treated as P-listed waste, right? Most of them are going to be to a hazardous waste facility that is a TSDF, and they are being incinerated, right? There are some efforts, and we are working with those close to get post-consumer. Currently, they're very well established and in place processes for post-manufacturing, pre-consumer devices. They're capturing the nicotine, the device, etc. Where we run into problems is, and you mentioned moving it interstate is a really big challenge because you can't move. We move batteries through parcel all the time, right? With our mail-back program, it's in dynamic packaging, so it is, we follow DOT FEMSA really close, and we have probably the most dynamic packaging in the industry today, and some of those are, those vapes are being collected in those programs, but the challenge is, what do we do? And you've hit on all those points. How do we demanufacture it? Because it's got a really powerful lithium poly battery in most of them, and that's got value at the downstream, but how do you get it out and then recycle all those different parts? So there are conscious, there are conscious efforts going on. They're at the grassroots level right now, but yeah, we are very aware and are working from our side to help support.
Yeah, that's the key is, we as a nation need the rare earth metals, and we need to not be incinerating these, right? We need to be taking them back and I call it returns management, but it's demanufacturing these and breaking them down to what we need, and the right to repair and the idea that you can pull that battery out without taking it apart would be something that would be huge for all this stuff. But again, thank you guys so much. I think we're at our time. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Oh, absolutely.